I want you to do me a favor right now. Just reach out and tap the table you're sitting at. Or maybe grab your coffee cup. Or if you're driving, just grip the steering wheel for a second.
Yeah, I really feel it.
Right. It feels completely undeniable, doesn't it? It's solid, it takes up space, it resists your hand. It is, quite obviously, just stuff.
It's basically the most intuitive thing in the human experience. You push it, and it pushes back. But I'm afraid that that confidence you're feeling right now about that stuff, we are about to completely dismantle it today.
I had a feeling you were going to ruin my sense of stability.
Well, that's what we do here. We are doing a deep dive today into the nature of matter. We've got a fantastic source document that compiles 10 of history's greatest thinkers, tracing this from ancient Greece all the way to the quantum age.
Yeah, and they are all trying to answer one deceptively simple question, which is just, what is matter?
Exactly. And the source material actually opens with a bit of a bombshell from Noam Chomsky, written back in 1928, that I think sets the stage perfectly for this.
I caught that. He points out this massive contradiction. I mean, we can split the atom, right? We build microchips that power AI. We literally land rovers on Mars. But Chomsky notes that even today, we still lack a satisfactory answer as to what matter truly is.
It's wild to think about. We know exactly how to manipulate it, but we don't actually know what the fundamental building blocks are. Throughout history, we've moved from viewing the world as these solid little blocks to viewing it as energy and then to probability fields.
And every time we think we've nailed the definition down, it just sort of slips through our fingers again.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to go on a chronological journey. We're tracking 10 distinct perspectives to see how our understanding of reality has shifted over time.
It's like we're experts at driving a car, but we have absolutely no idea what's under the hood. So to understand why we're still so confused, we have to fire up the time machine. We're going back to the 5th century BC, back when science and philosophy were essentially the exact same thing.
Yes, our first stop. We're meeting Democritus of Abdera,
The original atomist. Now, when we hear the word atom today, we immediately think of the periodic table or nuclear physics. But for Democritus, this wasn't really science in the modern sense, was it?
Not at all. He was trying to solve a philosophical puzzle. The goal here was to explain the composition of bodies and how things change, how a tree grows or why a rock crumbles without resorting to supernatural forces.
Because before this, if a storm rolled in or a mountain collapsed, it was just because the gods were angry.
Precisely. It was a move toward natural explanation. Democritus wanted a world that actually made logical sense. So he proposed that everything is made of just two things.
The void and the atoms.
Right. The void is just empty space. And atoms, well, the etymology of the Greek word atomos literally means something indivisible, uncuttable.
So it's basically the fundamental Lego brick of reality.
A myriad of them, infinite indivisible particles that are just overlapping and moving in the void. They crash into each other, they hook together to make a table, and they fall apart to make dust.
It's a purely mechanical universe, which honestly sounds incredibly modern to our ears. It sounds like high school chemistry.
Yeah.
But then comes Aristotle, who I guess we could call the heavyweight champion of ancient thought, and he completely disagrees with this Lego block view.
Aristotle looked at Democritus's theory and essentially argued that you can't explain a thing just by listing its ingredients. Matter has to be dependent on form.
Right. The source material introduces two key terms here, hyale and morphe. Let's break those down.
So hyale refers to formless matter, the raw stuff, and morphe is the universal form. Aristotle says objects are a combination of that raw stuff and their identity.
There's a really great example in the source using a flower petal.
Yes. If you ask Democritus, a petal is just a temporary pile of atoms arranged in a certain shape by accident.
But Aristotle says, wait, it isn't just atoms. It's a combination of plant tissue, the matter, and a formal essence, the petal's essence.
Exactly. What makes it a petal and not just a pile of slush? It's its function, its identity. For Aristotle, matter without form is just potential. You can't have an actual object without its essence.
So objects are a combination of stuff and identity. That's a huge shift from the blind mechanical parts of Democritus, and that tension between those two views basically simmers for centuries.
It really does. It doesn't break wide open again until we hit the 17th century, which brings us to chapter 2 of our journey, the split.
Enter René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy.
And this is where the mechanistic conception of the universe really takes off. Descartes introduces dualism.
Probably one of the most influential ideas in human history.
Yeah.
He draws this hard line in the sand between two dimensions.
Right. Res cutens and res extensa.
Let's unpack those. Res cogitans is the mental dimension, right? The mind, the subject.
Yes, and res extensa is the physical material dimension, extended stuff. Descartes argued that the material world is characterized purely by extension and motion. It takes up space, it moves, and crucially, it's quantifiable. It's governed entirely by math.
By completely separating the mind from the material world, he essentially detached nature from human subjectivity.
That is the major takeaway here. This mechanistic conception reduced nature to measurable, predictable entities. It paved the way for modern physics because it told scientists they could measure and study the physical world as a giant machine, completely separate from the soul or the mind.
But not everyone was thrilled with this cold, mechanical view of a dead universe.
No, absolutely not. Which brings us to Baruch Spinoza, who offers a powerful counterpoint, a holistic worldview.
Spinoza looked at Descartes' split and basically said, no, that doesn't make sense. If God is infinite, how can there be two completely separate substances?
Spinoza's key phrase is deus ex natura. God and nature are one and the same reality.
So matter isn't just a bunch of separate ingredients or gears in a machine.
Exactly. For Spinoza, matter is a manifestation of one infinite substance. Everything is part of a whole, just expressing itself in different ways. You and me and the table, we aren't separate things. We're just different expressions of the exact same underlying reality.
It's a beautifully unified vision. But as history marches on, especially into the scientific revolution, the focus shifts back to the mechanics. We start asking less about the infinite substance and more about how we actually perceive this stuff.
Which leads us into Chapter 3, the English empiricist approach, pioneered by John Locke.
Locke introduces a distinction that I think is fascinating: primary qualities versus secondary qualities.
This is a brilliant framework. Locke says that to understand matter, we have to understand how we perceive it. Primary qualities are things like extension or motion. These exist independently of the observer. They are mathematically real.
So if I roll a snowball down a hill, its size, its shape, and its speed are primary. They're real facts about the object.
Exactly. But secondary qualities like color or taste, or in the case of the snowball, its coldness, those depend entirely on the observer.
The snowball itself isn't cold. It just has properties that cause my brain to experience the sensation of cold.
Right. This distinction massively shaped modern science. It actually shares a lot of similarities with Galileo's epistemology. It allowed scientists to focus strictly on the primary measurable qualities of matter.
And the scientist who mastered the measurement of those primary qualities was, without a doubt, Isaac Newton.
The founder of mathematical physics himself.
Newton gives us the definition of matter that most of us are still taught in school today. Anything that possesses mass and occupies space is a material object.
It's incredibly neat and tidy, and he showed that matter interacts through measurable forces. But despite this brilliant mechanistic view, there was a massive mystery that Newton himself couldn't solve.
Gravity.
Yes, gravity was a massive conceptual gap for him. He could map the math of it perfectly, but he never fully grasped how an abstract force like gravity could influence matter at a distance.
How does the Earth pull on the moon across hundreds of thousands of miles of empty space without any physical connection?
Right, action at a distance. It felt like magic. It felt like a gap in the very understanding of what matter is and how it behaves.
That mystery of gravity just sits there, unresolved for a very long time. But before physics eventually solves it, philosophy takes another massive swing at the concept of matter. We're moving into Chapter 4 now. The mind and the flow of history.
Enter Immanuel Kant in the 18th century. Kant brings about what we call an epistemological shift via transcendental idealism.
That sounds incredibly intimidating.
It is dense, but the core concept is brilliant. Kant proposes a massive twist. Matter doesn't actually present itself to us directly. Our mind structures it.
So we aren't just passively observing the universe.
Exactly. Material phenomena are phenomena of the subject's experience. To understand matter, you have to understand the cognitive forms that make it intelligible in the first place.
It's like we are all born wearing permanent VR goggles. The hardware of our brains uses concepts like space and time to organize the raw data of the universe into something we can comprehend.
That's a great analogy. It's about the lens, not just the object. Matter isn't just sitting out there independently. Our experience of it is actively shaped by our own cognitive architecture.
And then, shortly after Kant, G.W.S. Hegel takes this idea of matter not being static and pushes it even further.
Hegel introduces the idea of matter as an evolving process.
Right, the dialectical process.
Right.
Reality evolves through a logic of contradictions and overcoming those contradictions.
For Hegel, matter and spirit are deeply interrelated. You can't just describe matter using physical measurements. Matter actually acquires its meaning through its relationship to history and culture.
So a piece of marble isn't just a physical object with mass and extension. Its reality is tied to whether it's unmined rock or if it's been carved into a statue during the Renaissance. It evolves.
It moves far beyond simple physical descriptions. It's a dynamic, historical view of reality.
Which brings us to the final chapter of our deep dive, the 20th century, the modern revolution, where everything we thought we knew gets turned completely upside down.
Albert Einstein changes the game forever.
He takes Newton's solid definition of mass and shatters it with one incredibly famous equation, E equals mc squared.
The equivalence of matter and energy. This proves that mass and energy aren't two separate things. They are the same thing in different states. Matter is basically highly concentrated energy.
And Einstein also finally solves Newton's centuries-old mystery about gravity.
Right. Action at a distance is no longer a magical pulling force. Einstein shows that gravity is actually the curvature of space-time caused by mass.
I love the quote the source uses here to synthesize Einstein's view. It's from the physicist John A. Wheeler.
Yes. Matter tells space how to curve, and space tells matter how to move.
It's just brilliant. The stage and the actors are interacting with each other. But as revolutionary as relativity was, it wasn't the final stop. Because when we zoomed in on matter, things got even weirder.
We finally arrive at quantum mechanics, and we meet Richard Feynman.
And here is the ultimate irony of this whole journey. We started with Democritus, who gave us the word atom, meaning uncuttable. But we did cut it.
We split the atom, and we looked inside, and what did we find? Not solid little Lego bricks. Feynman represents a pragmatic shift in how we handle this. He basically says, it doesn't really matter what matter is at that level. What matters is how it behaves and how we describe it mathematically.
Because down at the quantum level, the classical view is just dead.
Completely abandoned. The mechanistic view of Descartes and Newton is gone. Quantum systems aren't tiny billiard balls bouncing around. They are described by states and probability amplitudes. They don't have well-defined trajectories until they interact or are measured.
So an electron isn't a solid thing orbiting a nucleus like a planet. It's a cloud of probability. It's a mathematical likelihood.
Exactly. We went from hard, extended stuff to probability amplitudes.
So synthesizing this whole journey, it is pretty staggering. We started with indivisible mechanical atoms. We moved to Aristotle's form and essence, then to Descartes' strict separation of mind and math.
Then Spinoza's infinite substance and Locke's primary qualities.
Newton gave us mass and space. Kant said our minds structure the whole thing. Hegel tied it to history. Einstein revealed it's just curved space-time and energy. And Feynman showed us it's all just probability at the bottom.
And that brings us right back to Chomsky's point at the very beginning. While we have incredible math and highly accurate models, the true fundamental nature of matter remains elusive.
We've basically moved from asking what is it to asking how does it behave.
Exactly. We know what it does, but the core essence of the stuff itself is still a mystery.
Which leaves us with a final, highly provocative thought to mull over. The source material notes that matter has been central to the history of human thought for a reason.
Right.
So, listener, think about this. If the table in front of you, if matter itself is just a combination of concentrated energy, probability amplitudes, and the structuring perception of your own mind, well, what are you made of?
It suggests that trying to understand matter might actually be the only way we can ultimately understand ourselves.
It absolutely does. It completely changes how you look at the physical world around you.
It really has been a fascinating journey through these 10 thinkers.
Definitely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening, and we will see you on the next deep dive.